One of my primary infographics that I find necessary to explain the world stage concept because, it's invisible, it exists in time, it's an internalized model of the world that is fundamentally misinformed. And what we operate here with the IPS think tank, we operate on the premise that the fusion of real and fake has put the masses into hyper reality. The confusion, the deliberately sown confusion, has been exacerbated by the advent of generative AI, further confusing an already confusing world concept. So what I want to do here is just explain the main points of it. And I believe I have it to the point where I can actually put this into a actual printable, maybe even a poster infographic. So here we have the world stage and then the off-world stage. But the world stage first, you have the timeline on the bottom, which is the black. History, news, future. So past, present, future. And you'll see here on the timeline, the future is blank. The news cycle, these little ticks are the news cycles. The circle here represents the collectively agreed upon consensus reality, which I call the world stage. So the world stage is what we experience from our individual perspectives, plus, in addition to, what is augmented by the MSM, the media environment. So this is beyond just news media. It's not something you can turn off. It's the collectively agreed upon internalized version of the world. So our timeline, history, news, future, isn't pure because it also contains a secondary timeline that actually, if you look at the direction of the arrow, it comes from the future. So you think your future is unwritten, but you have this sequence of news cycles that are being surreptitiously inserted into the consensus through media. And these would be the fake events, the fake people, the fake psyops. This would encompass things like, well, every staged PR stunt, not just the terror attacks, not just the shootings, but even things like Trump's golden statue and how it was perfectly and completely mirrored by the Homelander statue, a show that has repeatedly foreshadowed real events. My point being here, these fake events are inserted through the media, contaminating what I call the world stage. That contamination is what puts us into the hyper reality because these fake things are accepted as real. But they're not accepted uniformly because you have the extremes of the political dialectic, which I have here in green as a political horseshoe. Here is woke left. Here is woke right. The mainstream accepted version is referred to here as the MSM. The conspiracy theories fit into this circle, the subset, which we call MSM plus, because they get the version from above, but they add some stuff onto it. Like they got the version that what's his name got shot in the neck, but then they add a bunch of stories. They add subplots onto the fake event. So every conspiracy theory is in fact a subplot attached to this false timeline, which I call the meta script, because all these events have scripts and they're all inserted into our consensus, merged with the news. And if you look here, our history is actually a fusion of our lived timeline and what they inserted. But now every event or fake person that they insert into the world stage goes to the same process. It is delivered from above, fake event, fake event, fake event. But there's a process here which I labeled as triangulation. So every story, every event is presented in such a way that it gets the two sides to fight over it. And it is in the fighting over the fake event that the event becomes real, internalized, a part of our narrative structures. So the majority of news here, the real stuff, bends around, focuses on the fake stuff. So this is a confusion of two, a conversion of two timelines, the world stage with the fake stuff. And the bifurcation down the middle along the political horseshoe here divides the news consumers into two broad groups, pro and anti. They trust the authorities, they don't. The problem is those who distrust the essential story add on to it, and they still stay within the political horseshoe. They don't exit the entire paradigm because they're not cognizant of the convergence of real and fake, the hyper reality. In fact, every subplot only deepens the hyper reality. Ironically, the conspiracy theorists who think that the resistance are in fact going into a deeper level of programming than the average person. So left, pro, right, anti. For example, as far as how these things are bifurcated, there's a feminist coding left, toxic masculinity right. The left would be open borders, the right would be closed borders. Left is open skin, left is closed skin regarding the vax. Left sees aliens, right sees diamonds. When I say left and right, it's progressive traditional. So it's not just referring to American politics, it's two conflicting worldviews. The previous one, more rooted in religion, and the new one, rooted in science fiction. I mean, you could say science, but in terms of our worldview, it's more ideological and political, and science isn't really the primary consideration. It's about worldview. So they can fake a moon landing. Why? It's not for science. It's to unify everybody in a worldview, because every one of these simulated events becomes part of our shared agreement. The very big events are great unifiers. One great leap for all mankind. Now we all exist in the world stage. It's our collective agreed upon backdrop. As Napoleon Bonaparte said, history is lies agreed upon. If that's not a lie, if he even said that. Now, if you look at the top, a couple of things here. The past, present, future, history, news, future. What I have here is news is the present where we live right now. And the world stage perspective is framed by what's happening right now. They're very reactive, and the two sides fight over every story, pro, anti, pro, anti. The off-world stage perspective, which I'll get into next, if you look here, it looks to the future at prospective incoming events, which are given away through predictive programming. It's aware of the world stage, but it's not in it. And its perspective ranges back to our shared history. So our interpretation of day-to-day events is informed of the history of fakery, how systemic it is, and how it's not a one-off anomalous. It's not anomalous. It's not a PR stunt every day that we're subjected to. No, these are staged historic events that become permanent. And we recognize that these things are written into the future. The Charlie Kirk assassination was written 27 to 30 years in the future. I mean, in the past, and it was planned 30 years prior. And we can demonstrate this in a number of ways. So the off-world stage perspective sees the world stage, sees the program, the meta script, which is given away by the continuous sequence of fake events, accompanied by predictive programming, concurrent programming, which is programming. We're talking about getting you attached to the program, and this is the program. Like if you go to a play, you're in the real world, you're sitting in your seat, but you have a bunch of fake events performed for you, and you have a little program they give you, which has a list of all the scenes. So when I say programmed, I mean you're adhering to the fake events. And if you're an anti or a pro, you are programmed. And a lot of people might want to hear this. Like, if you are anti fill in the blank, you're part of the program. Outside of pro and anti, there is an option, and it's called non, which means non-participant in the Psy war, conscientious objector, not taking sides. And the reason why we wouldn't want to take sides is that both of them are actually part of a monopoly. It's a dual, I call it a duopoly, but it's a monopoly. It's a single source of information, but it's presented in such a way that the triangulated factions fight one another, and it makes it look like there's an establishment and an anti-establishment. But guess what? The anti-establishment is all in the same closed informational system. Closed to what? Well, closed to the fact that they live in a convergence of real and fake. Closed to other things like history bending. So what is history bending? The cumulative effect of fake news cycles, infusing the news cycles, becoming part of our establishment history. Open any textbook, it's the mainstream version of everything. So the world stage positions, no matter what your opinion is, if you're a world stager, you are standing upon an edifice of fakery extending back, 70, 80 years. I mean, we're looking at many decades of systemic fakery. I mean, you could speculate about how much further back it goes. Is this a new iteration of an older system? But that's besides the point. I'm sticking to what we can prove. So history bending, which is accomplished through news bending. And then you have what I call the PSYOP entertainment complex, which is a convergence, rather a collusion of government, news media, and entertainment. And of course, we're educated for this program. We are programmed to accept the program. We are given a predisposition to default to just trusting the program and accepting it as real. And that's accomplished through education. So I used to use this acronym GAME. So government, academia, media, entertainment, because it is an alternate reality game when they're fighting over a fake event as though it's real. Oh, let's go through the alien files. Oh, those are demons. Let's go through the Epstein files. That's a hoax. No, it's Pizzagate. You know what I mean? It's the fighting over the event that makes it real. And then we are also informed about concurrent programming, like the alignment between entertainment and real events, like the Homelander with his Bible and his golden statue, as Trump comes out with his Bible and his golden statue. Mind you, the show was recorded years before. So the release of the programming in entertainment corresponds to the manufactured media events, which are done at behest of government. So concurrent programming is where you see the media environment, in the news media environment, mirrored by what's in the entertainment, where it creates this inescapable echo chamber effect. And concurrent programming is what happens during the present news cycle. So you turn on Netflix and you see exactly what's happening on TV, on the news. Or you watch a movie and it's like, oh, I just saw this. You find these parallels between things like the Artemis mission and Ryan Gosling's Project Hail Mary and the Easter holiday. These things all align. But now concurrent programming is only that which pertains to the now. The programming that foreshadows future fake events, we call predictive programming. So when you watch something and it seems to allude to a coming agenda, or it's part of the opinion shaping process, getting people acclimated to accept a new agenda, you would call that predictive programming. So whenever they plan a fake event, there are a number of things that are going to be attached to each fake event that they're going to put into the programming. And so, for example, they plan years in advance to, we'll stick with the Charlie Kirk thing for a moment here, that this is going to happen. Well, how did they create a build up for that? And what was the programming build up? And so you would basically look for media foreshadowing, a former product placement. 9/11 would be a much easier example here because we can point to numerous examples of foreknowledge, which is usually mystified by the truthers. They think, oh, they have to tell us because they're going to do this bad thing. Well, no, it's not really that. It's actually a form of habituating you to what they're going to do. But after an event happens, you generally find the predictive stuff. The concurrent stuff is usually more obvious, like with the Charlie thing, it was the Tempest came out on the same day. And not only did it mirror the event to a T, but it predicted the character arc of Erica Kirk. So you can extrapolate from that Erica Kirk is not an authentic person, a grieving widow, but she's an actress. And her entire backstory of being a honeypot, perhaps being a plant by some foreign agency, that's all just subplot. And if you have Erica Kirk derangement syndrome and you're on team Candace Owens, yeah, you're stuck in the subplots. And the subplot is the plot plus, something else. So MSM, oh, I don't agree with the MSM mainstream mediated version. So let me add some extra stuff, which is why we call that MSM plus. The off-world stage perspective we refer to as MSM minus. So we're not the normie MSM. We're not adding a bunch of subplots. No, in fact, minus means we are subtracting the program and only acknowledging the real. So the off-world stage perspective is more informed. It takes into account all of these other factors: news bending, history bending, psyop, entertainment complex, predictive programming, meta script, concurrent programming, the program itself. And of course, our perspective is inclusive of the decades and history of fakery. So you have people who are still stuck at the starting line. They're like, is this real or is it fake? Well, maybe you need to also consider that they've been faking exact such scenarios for decades. I mean, there's a point where I think being caught in the now is likely one of the main reasons why people aren't seeing through this thing, because there's so much news, so much information, you can't possibly parse through it all. So you're just trying to play catch up. And we don't have to, because we can categorically recognize the fake events. These are easily diagnosed by looking at the repetitive and predictable hoax indicators. And among the hoax indicators are the predictive and concurrent things, which only ever predict fake events. So I hope that clarifies things. The off-world stage perspective is a non-participant. Anybody that is still adhering to an anti-position because they think they're fighting the good fight, no, they've been conscripted into the mind who are their front lines. And by participating in the triangulation, by reacting, they're ceding their personal control and autonomy. We don't react to the fake stuff. Emotionally, we respond to it with full knowledge of what we're looking at. All right, well, we'll be live very soon. I was just thinking I would put this out as a separate, because I've done this one before, but again, those were rough drafts, and I'm at the point now where I think I have the right information to where I can explain this invisible prison's architecture, because you cannot consider yourself deprogrammed until you've decoupled the programming from the real, until you go MSM minus, the subtractive route, and that includes accepting the fact that we have a psyop entertainment complex that puts routine psyops, routine fake events and staged events into our timelines. All right, I will see you in Discord, and we'll likely be live in about an hour or so. I have a few errands to run.